Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I am the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode 89 of Who's the Bossk. It is also our third season premiere. We're going into the third season of this podcast here on Laughing Place, where we talk about all things Star Wars. And for episode 89, aka the season 3 premiere, I have invited back on the show my friend and coworker and the co-founder of laughingplace.com, Rebekah Moseley. Rebekah, how are you? Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
I'm doing well. I am so excited to be here. I can't wait to not only kind of discuss a little bit of what's happening in the world of Star Wars, but definitely excited to talk Book of Boba Fett with you.
Yeah, so that's most of what this episode's going to be about, is the Book of Boba Fett, which just premiered as of midnight last night when we're recording this on Wednesday, December 29th, 2021. But we should also say that we are live. We are live on YouTube for this episode and for the next 6 episodes, 7 total, talking about the Book of Boba Fett. We're going to talk about each and every episode as they come out on Who's the Bossk. But first, let's talk a little bit about you, Rebekah. What's been going on? How are you? How's your holiday season? How's stuff at laughingplace.com?
Oh, well, we're keeping, it's nice. It's a little bit quiet right now, so we're able to catch up a little bit. We're doing a lot of year in review type focus around here. For me personally, the holidays have been very dreary and wet. So I have been hiding inside with the heater on high and brandy at the ready.
That's great. And we are going to be taking comments because that's one of the features of doing this live. And I see that Mike Farnham, who we know runs a Star Wars Galaxy's Edge website and social media channels and stuff. He says, hey, Mike and Rebekah. So thanks for watching, Mike, out there. And we are going to do something called the 5 Star Wars questions. This is something that's a regular feature on Who's the Bossk for the past 2 seasons. There's the title card right there if you're watching live. So Rebekah, you've been on this show numerous times in the past. You have answered the 5 Star Wars questions, both level 1 and level 2. But since this is the season premiere of season 3 of Who's the Bossk, we're going to graduate you to something called the 5 Star Wars questions level 3. And this is the debut of level 3 of the 5 Star Wars questions. You will be the first guest to ever answer these. Are you ready? Are you excited?
I am ready and excited to answer these questions.
Excellent. Okay, here we go. The 5 Star Wars questions, level 3 for Rebekah Moseley. Number 1, what is your favorite Star Wars book or comic book, and why?
Well, I actually have it right here in my little hands.
Wow.
It is it is actually a reprint because of it's 78, but this is a number 1 of the Star Wars comics from Marvel. The reason why this is cherished is because I actually did not see the film in theaters upon its original release. My parents thought I might be too sensitive a child for such an immersive experience on the big screen. So in many ways, Star Wars for me was first experienced through these visuals and through this storytelling device here, the Marvel Comics. And I actually, Mike, I have the whole, like the first 8, but number 1 obviously is the treasured.
That's great. So you said it's a reprint. When did that reprint actually come out? Because we know the comics started before the movie.
Yeah, I think this is actually from 78. So okay. I think it was just kind of like the first edition would have been with the film release, and then this would have been like shortly after. So,
yeah, because I want to say the first 2 or 3 issues came out before the movie was released in 77. Mm-hmm. And then people would have gone and seen the end of the movie, and then you could go and read the rest of the comics as they were coming out monthly. And then, of course, they continued that series for, I think, 107 issues. The diamond shows it's a reprint, says Mike Farnham.
But then starting with number 4, I think, is when I started to buy them as they were.
Okay.
It was not it doesn't say reprint on them. 1 through 3 say reprint, but number 4 doesn't.
Very cool. I'm very impressed by that. I have them all in a big collected like trade paperback
Oh yeah.
edition. So that's a pretty cool.
Yeah, for those of you listening, I received mine when I was about 6 years old, so they are very well worn. The cover is barely intact. So yeah, these have seen a lot of love over the years. I'm very surprised that none of the pages are stuck together by silly putty, to be honest.
You say well worn and I say well loved. So let's move on to number 2 of the 5 Star Wars questions. Level 3. If you could own a life-size working replica of any Star Wars vehicle, what would you choose?
Okay, let's see. I think, okay, yeah, no, I'm gonna have to say sand speeder.
A land speeder. Yeah, yeah.
Land speeder. It's funny because in thinking about the first car I bought a convertible, and I wonder how much of my fascination with Luke and his zooming around the Tatooine desert led to me buying an open top vehicle.
I
So
like that. That's going to be a really fun choice, I think. Speeding around the desert and that thing. Mike said the speeder bike, which also that seems a lot more dangerous.
yeah,
At least the land speeder has that windshield thing. If you get in an accident, you might be able to have like a crumple zone or something. On the speeder
true.
bike, you're just dead. You just explode, basically. Don't drive that thing around the Northern California forests where they shot Return of the Jedi.
Right,
Um,
and I just have too hard of a, it's, I can't wrap my head around the notion of a star destroyer or any, you know, an X-wing fighter. I can't even wrap my head around the idea of being in one. So the speeder is at least like what relatable somewhat. I can
yeah,
see myself operating one of those.
it's the closest analogy that Star Wars has to a car, to just like a sports car, basically. You know, there's that one that Han Solo steals at the beginning of Solo, a Star Wars story. That's kind of like a souped up hot rod kind of a thing. But yeah, I can totally see the land speeder being a good choice. All right, number 3, the 5 Star Wars questions, level 3. What is your favorite non-human Star Wars alien species?
Oh, now my watery friend counts, right?
Your
The di-
watery friend?
the Dianoga. That's a Star Wars alien species, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there you go.
Okay.
It is always and forever the Dianoga when I am asked anything about Star Wars. I'm sorry,
Okay.
my
I
love.
should I should have specified sentient,
Ah, oh, okay,
but no, you're
fine,
right. That does fit the question as stated.
fine.
Um
I
Mike,
can adjust my answer to fit your. So you're thinking more, who would I encounter in a cantina bar?
yeah, who would you want to hang out with? Which of the alien species would you want to hang out with that can converse with you, whether you spoke their language or not, or needed a
Hmm.
translator droid?
Hmm. I kind of been fascinated by Etherians.
Oh,
So
the Ithorians, yeah,
yeah.
the Hammerhead guys.
See, okay, yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah,
Hammerhead, but then
yeah,
I remembered he had a name, but I didn't quite get it right. But there you go.
they are very unique looking. They're not just like a human head with one
Nope.
eye or something. It's very different looking head,
Very,
which is
very
always
tall
cool.
too, right?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
tall. As you
I I,
see,
I, I enjoy tall.
if you visit Doc Ondar in Star Wars
Mhm.
Galaxy's Edge, as Mike knows there in the comments, he said Ponda Baba, who's an Aqualish. We're going to talk about that species later when we get to Book of Boba Fett, because they popped up. Spoiler alert. All right, number 4. What is your favorite piece of Star Wars music and why?
Um, yeah, I had to kind of poke around to come up with this when I was thinking on it,
Okay.
because I had to look up the name. I the portion of score that has hit me the most is Yoda and the Force, and it's that sequence on Dagobah. And I that piece of music is amazing to me. Whenever, no matter where I am, when I hear it, I can immediately start to envision Luke and Yoda's disappointment that he is not getting it. That it's like, no, and it also harkens back to some of why I love Star Wars so much, and that is I was always the smallest in my class, always the smallest among my friends, and yet with Star Wars, right, like the greatest among the Jedi was this diminutive figure, and that's really showcased within the scene that this music accompanies.
So this is the scene where Yoda lifts the X-wing out of the swamp.
Hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. That's got a great piece of music going along with it, and certainly one of my absolute favorite scenes in the original trilogy. Just sends shivers up my spine or down my spine. We get some comments in the chat here. Duel of the Fates, another great one. Vader's March, Imperial March,
Imperial
is
March.
pretty great. Yeah,
I used to love to blast that in my dorm while I was studying, just crank it full volume and irritate my roommates by blasting Imperial March as I studied. But
love it.
I'm a big fan of John Williams' music in general. Had the opportunity to see him conduct the at the Hollywood Bowl probably half dozen times over my life. So just an incredible music man, and yeah.
Yeah, we've seen that show a few times as well at the Hollywood Bowl. Always puts on a great performance, and every year I wonder how long is he going to keep doing it. But
Right?
I gotta make sure to see him again next time because I feel like each year could be the last one. But just such an amazing talent and such a wonderful experience getting to see him conduct the orchestra live for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5 of the 5 Star Wars questions, the final one for level 3. If you could go back in time and be present on set for the filming of any Star Wars live action scene, which would it be?
Um, my initial thought is the trash compactor, because that's in many ways that's what made me. That's like where my love of Star Wars is really, that particular sequence, from the moment Leia grabs the rifle till they jump into the compactor and make it through with 3PO and his screaming and the concern over his master. That's like where I was sucked in totally. But I will say my choice is actually, I would love to have seen Luke and Leia swing across in A New Hope when Carrie Fisher seemingly is holding on to Mark Hamill. Sweet. That seems like a fun moment. I have to imagine that there was some fun on set. I haven't done a lot of behind the scenes watching in regards to Star Wars, but that's one of those moments that I think would have fun to witness in person.
Yeah, those are definitely some very good choices. The trash compactor would be so cool to see for sure. Anything with water in it. I
Right?
mean, not to spoil anything, but like if I ever get to answer these questions, which I'm sure I will at some point, my choice is going to be the Dagobah Swamp again because I'm fascinated by whenever they build water into a set on like a sound stage, like when they shot the Goonies and they had the big pirate ship in the cavern there in the water, like that was on the Warner Brothers backlot in the soundstage. Like how the heck did they pull that off? Doobie said the Battle of Naboo. Mike said the carbon freezing chamber in Empire.
Mm.
Pretty
By the
good.
way, Mike, regards that question, when you're posing it to me, I thought you would say Dagobah, but for different reasons than you're talking about, because I was thinking it would combine your love of the Muppets
Yeah.
because you would have also had the opportunity to see that element of the Star Wars magic as
Oh
well. So
yeah.
like, there's so many things that.
No,
So
that's definitely a big part of it. I mean, not only did Frank Oz, perform Yoda on set, but then the Muppets themselves actually visited. There's photos of Kermit and Miss Piggy visiting the set of Dagobah and meeting Yoda and stuff. So it would have been pretty amazing to be there for that with Jim Henson and Frank Oz present with Irving Kershner, the director of Empire Strikes Back. So yeah, a lot of good options there. Okay, that is the end of the 5 Star Wars questions for this episode, which brings us to the next segment called Star Wars Headlines. And this is where we talk about all the news coming out of a galaxy far, far away since our last recording, which was a little while ago, actually. So most of this stuff coming out recently has been about the Book of Boba Fett, because that is the big happening in Star Wars this week. We got a release of the main theme. This is a very interesting, speaking of pieces of music from Star Wars, this kind of has a very interesting take on it. What did you think of this? The new theme for Book of Boba Fett, written by Ludwig Göransson, who scored The Mandalorian as well.
I enjoyed the music a lot. I was surprised with. Well, I'll talk about that part later.
Okay.
But for now, I will say that the music for me is very clearly different The Mandalorian, but yet I can tell that it has a similar composer in the similar way with John Williams. You know, you're like, oh, that's a John Williams music. There were elements of this that to me felt like Ludwig Göransson's music.
Right. And kind of interestingly, Ludwig did write this main theme, but he's not scoring the full series
Right.
of Book of Boba Fett. I'm blanking on the other composer's name
Mhm.
who's doing that, but there's a composer who is scoring the full episodes. It's probably in that article maybe, but Ludwig must be too busy.
Joseph
I think. Go ahead.
Joseph Shirley, I believe,
Okay.
right? Is the name? Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Mike said I have a blue Easter egg on my desk. We're gonna get to that in a bit as well. How about the new poster art that came out? I think this is gonna be a once a week type thing. Is that the art? I thought it was all like yellow and stuff. No,
Okay. These. This
no, it
one?
was a drawn one, but
That one.
there you go.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so they said I think every Wednesday or Monday, I think before the show, we're gonna get a new artist's like interpretation of the Book of Boba Fett in kind of illustrated form. And then, like you showed previously, also some new posters, some official posters coming out with some different artwork that all look really cool. Pretty excited about that. And then also from the Book of Boba Fett, we got a new featurette with an interview with Tamura Morrison that came out this morning after the episode launched on Disney Plus. What did you think of that interview? It was very short. It was like a minute long.
Yeah, it was a nice brief look. For me, I like the fact that they call him Tem. That was new to me
Yeah.
to hear him referred to as Tem. So that kind of, caught my ear. So yeah.
Now, do you think we'll be allowed to call him that, or we just got to call him by his full name?
Yeah, I don't know. That was one of those things I'm like, is that like a familiar or is that, like Bob versus Robert?
Right.
I'm unsure.
Mike was asking if that artwork is going to be available anywhere. I'm not sure if I remember seeing that. Um,
I only saw it in like on their Twitter, on the Star Wars official Twitter stream, and then on starwars.com, along with a little bit of information about each of the artists behind the artwork. But they didn't specifically list it as something that was available. We've seen previously, Mike, where some of that artwork has made its way to Tervis, those stainless steel insulated bottles and things like that. So we'll be sure to keep an eye out for it, and we'll be posting it at Laughing Place if that happens, or I'm sure Mike will talk about it here on Who's the Bossk.
Great. And keeping things going with Book of Boba Fett, we got a picture of Ming-Na Wen, the co-star of Book of Boba Fett, visiting the Disneyland Resort and sitting in that throne photo op out in front of the Star Wars Trading Post at downtown Disney, which I got to sit in. There's a photo of me in there. And then we've got Fennec Shan sitting in there. So I've sat in the same place that she has. No big deal.
That's pretty cool. No, I do think that's pretty cool to have a picture, maybe just about a week or two apart. That's like Ming-Na Wen sitting in the Fett throne, and then our own Mike C sitting in the Fett throne,
wearing the same Boba Fett hoodie that I'm wearing right now. And then, lastly, in Boba Fett news for the week, I wrote a book review of this book. It's called Star Wars Be More Boba Fett, and it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek self-help type book. And I was actually kind of surprised flipping through this thing that it actually offers quite a bit of like genuine advice on going into the freelance, like becoming a freelance worker or starting up your own business and dealing with having clients and stuff like that. Because Boba Fett is a bounty hunter, at least before the series, he was a bounty hunter, and he had to deal with clients hiring him, and it's about how to talk with them and make deals and stuff like that. And it does tell you about that kind of stuff through the prism of Star Wars characters and bounty hunters like Boba Fett. But it is also stuff that you can probably apply if you're looking to start your own business in the real world too. So it's helpful in that way. It's a good, fun gift. It's only $10, I think. So it's a fun gift for fans of Boba Fett or anybody maybe starting up their own business that would get a kick out of something like that. So
oh wow, I thought it was totally tongue in cheek. So you actually can come away with a little bit of insight into how to kind of
yeah,
think through. That's cool.
I was surprised to see that. And then I actually also am going to be interviewing the author of that book, whose name is Joseph J. Franco. And actually, I'm probably going to be doing that interview before I release this audio as part of the Who's the Bossk podcast. So I think that'll be included earlier in this episode. So people listening will be confused, but people watching right now will not be confused. So keep your ear out for that earlier in this episode. Anyway, I wrote a Star Wars comic book review that came out today. It's called Star Wars Bounty Hunters, number 19. There's the cover right there. And this is a continuation of this ongoing series. The main character in this series is named Baylor Valence. And yeah, Kyle said editing, it's a thing. Yeah, so we're going to be doing some editing when this episode is released. So Baylor Valence is a bounty hunter who got captured by Darth Vader in one of the previous issues. He's a cyborg. He's been rebuilt, and now he's been conscripted to fight in the Imperial Navy again. He used to be in the Empire like 15, 20 years ago. He actually fought alongside Han Solo when he was an Imperial cadet, but now Valence is working for Vader again, but a little bit more like unwillingly this time. And Darth Vader has tasked him with assassinating this Imperial officer who Vader tells him is a double agent working for Crimson Dawn, the crime syndicate that's like running rampant in the galaxy right now in this period between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So that's what this whole issue is about. Valence is going out on that mission. He gets to fly in a TIE fighter, again, a TIE Defender, actually, and try to take out this Imperial officer. I won't spoil what happens there, but that's pretty much this whole issue. And I enjoyed it. It's by Ethan Sachs, good writer, and he's doing a good job with that comic.
Well, I just picked up a Marvel Unlimited subscription to begin in the new year, as it were, and I am looking forward to some of those titles because it takes about a month after they've appeared on shelves and in your comic book stores, and then they make their way over to the Marvel Unlimited app. So I'm looking forward to kind of slowly catching up to where you are within the Bounty Hunters story.
Oh, great. Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, you have access to a lot of comics on that Marvel. And do they pretty much have the whole Star Wars library in there, or
it's slowly being added, it seems. There is a large bulk of it, and then the newer titles, it takes just about a month from their actual publication date until they become available on Marvel Unlimited.
And then as they add new stuff, are they getting rid of some of the old stuff? Is it like being rotated out?
It doesn't appear so.
Oh.
So it looks quite comprehensive. I was looking forward. I was going to have to talk to you about that eventually off air, and then maybe we can do a little segment on it one time here. You can let people know more about what's available, because it's hard to find out until you're actually kind of subscribed.
That sounds like a pretty good deal. I'm still stuck on paper comics. I don't like reading comics digitally for whatever reason, nor do I enjoy reading books like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like holding the paper copy in my hand. I like knowing that I destroyed a tree to read the book. It just makes it all the more enjoyable. Lastly, in Star Wars headlines this week, it's time to talk about some merch. Okay. Star Wars merchandise. Okay, so we got Bring Home the Bounty, first of all, which is this weekly reveal that they do, and most of this stuff is related to either The Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a wide variety of items, and Mike, since there is such kind of a wide scope, I thought I would just boil it down to a few items and kind of showcase and give you a little taste of what was made available through Bring Home the Bounty. Does that sound like plan?
Sure. And this segment you're calling what?
I'm going to go ahead and call it the Sandcrawler Selections. I've narrowed it down to 7 in honor of the Jawas we met on Avada 7.
All right. I love it. Let's take a look at 7 items from recent releases in Star Wars merchandise. Here we go.
Yep, this is a lot of the stuff from Bring Home the Bounty. The U.S. Postal Service is doing a passport and map accompany that sheet of droid stamps. These are available through the U.S. Postal site. It's a $37.95, and you can order that at the U.S. Postal site. Over at Best Buy, we've got a controller and holder that's celebrating Boba Fett. At Loungefly, the New York Comic Con had a special release, Ahsoka and Grogu, and those are now being made available in a general release. The wallet is around $40. The purse is around $80, and those are also available now from Loungefly. You can find more information about that at Laughing Place. There's this Boba's Starfighter, as it's described on the coin. This is a limited edition coin from the New Zealand Mint. What do you think of the colors on there, Mike? It's a nice looking coin.
The colors are nice. I'm not sure about this whole thing of them committing to not using the phrase Slave One on any merchandise. I thought that might just be for the Lego because it's more directed at younger kids. But they made this choice now to, I guess they're not calling it the Slave One anywhere. I don't even know if they're going to call it that in the show. I mean, they've never said the word Slave One as far as I know. I don't think, and certainly not in the original trilogy. I don't think in the prequels either. So
right.
I guess you'll just continue that tradition of not saying it. But it's odd to me that you're going to call it the generic name of Boba Fett's Starfighter on yeah.
No, I agree with you. I'm interested to see because, like you say, we don't see it on the merchandise, but yet we have seen it. I believe we saw it referred to as such recently. So I'm not sure if it's a total renaming or if we're looking at kind of a division of assignment. But I hope that we will see that answered in the series, right? So we can get a better idea of what the proper nomenclature will be moving forward.
I just wanted to point out, Mike was asking if Leia was not going to be called Slave Leia anymore. I do remember, I think on the old toys, they would call her Slave Leia when she was in the gold bikini. But I actually heard, I think somebody suggested as an alternative, Hut Slayer Leia, which I think sounds pretty cool. So I can't argue with that one.
That's a good transition. I agree. I like that, Hut Slayer Leia. And then we've got a couple of clothing items, some Book of Boba Fett items, including kind of that signature image of Boba Fett sitting on the throne with Fennec Shand on his side there. That's available from Hot Topic. We've got this bright red hoodie. This is from Spray Ground. It's kind of got a sketch, as it were, of the Mandalorian's armor on it. And it is a brilliant red. Reminds me of the Imperial Guard, to be honest. That is that kind of red. Spray Ground also had a few other hoodies with a Stormtrooper and they had some backpacks as well with the Death Star. So Spray Ground has some new Star Wars stuff. Mike's already familiar with this item because this is the Boba Fett costume pullover that's available from Shop Disney. And there you go. Those are the items that I have for you this week, Mike. Just a little taste of what's out there in the world of Star Wars.
Very neat. And we're going to be making that a regular segment for these 7 episodes talking about the Book of Boba Fett. We'll get more Sandcrawler selections each week. So check back in for that. And that brings us to our main topic for this episode of Who's the Bossk. We're going to be talking all about the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 1, and the title of this episode is Stranger in a Strange Land. Now, we should put the spoiler... we got the spoiler warning up already here on the screen. But yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, probably stop watching this or listening right now. Go check it out. It's on Disney+. And then you can come back and enjoy the rest of the conversation here. Because we are going to go into some spoilers for... probably quite a few spoilers for this episode. But first, I want to ask you, Rebekah, what was your expectation for the Book of Boba Fett going into this series?
What was my expectation?
Because you had told me that you were more excited for this than you were for The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I am. And I think it's just because it was a figure I was familiar with. and I very much enjoyed his appearance, his arrival on The Mandalorian, and so I was eager to kind of see him again and see where he was going to go. And he's a very complicated character, Boba Fett. He went from being a very simple character, right?
Yeah.
Before, when in Empire Strikes Back, right, he has like I think four lines or something is all we've ever known of him before he got thrown into the Sarlacc pit. And he always seemed just incredibly, to me, cold, like no emotion because we can't see his face, right? So just very cold. And over the course of Clone Wars and then with Mandalorian, we've seen a little more nuance to who Boba Fett is, and I'm interested to see that even further explored.
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same way. I have always wanted to know more about Boba Fett during this period. Obviously, we saw him as a child in the prequels, but during this period of his life, he's always been kind of a background or side character. And there have been stories in the expanded universe and the Legends continuity where they focused in a little bit on Boba Fett, but we never really got to look inside of his head. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like right off the bat in this show, we're in his head. And that's what I love about, we get to kind of see it from his perspective. He's not a background character anymore. He's not the guy lurking behind Jabba the Hutt or whatever, or standing behind Darth Vader in Cloud City. He's front and center, this character that we always wanted to know more about, and now we are learning more about him. So that's what really excites me and what I was excited for going in. This first episode of the Book of Boba Fett was directed by Robert Rodriguez, who also directed the episode of the second season of The Mandalorian called The Tragedy. It's pretty much the big like reintroduction of Boba Fett into the Star Wars mythos at that point in the timeline, because we had seen him pop up in like cameo appearances a couple times before in The Mandalorian. We saw his boots walking toward Fennec Shand at the end of one episode, and then we saw him like turn around at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the Marshall episode, and that was like the big like surprise. Oh, okay, Boba Fett's back. But the tragedy episode is the first time we got to spend a significant amount of time with him. So of course it carried over now that Robert Rodriguez is in charge of, or he's one of the executive producers of this Book of Boba Fett series with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. This creative team, I think they've shown that they really can do no wrong in all of them coming together to create this live action expansion of the Star Wars mythology on Disney Plus. Even Mike said there in the comments he was planning on not watching Book of Boba Fett, but he watched the first episode and now he's hooked. That's great to hear for somebody who wasn't that interested in it, that they really like this episode. So Robert Rodriguez previously had directed Desperado, From Dusk Till Dawn, Spy Kids, Sin City, Planet Terror, a whole bunch of movies. He's worked with Quentin Tarantino a bunch. He has regular actors, Antonio Banderas, and all sorts of people that trust him and know him and love him. I'm not a huge fan of his movies, I have to say, but I do think he's doing a good job on the show so far. So I'm excited to see more from him and from whoever else they brought in to direct the rest of these episodes, the filmmakers coming in to contribute. So let's talk about our thoughts kind of overall on this premiere episode, The Stranger in a Strange Land, chapter 1 of the Book of Boba Fett. What did you think,
I,
Rebecca?
I liked it very much. It was the thing that was my husband asked me to compare it to Mandalorian episode 1. And I'm like, the challenge with that is that the Mandalorian episode 1 was on this very straightforward path, and then in its final moment took this enormous turn to the right, and you're like, whoa, wait, I thought I was in this movie, now I'm in that show. Whereas this show started off kind of where I was surprised at what they shared with me I did not expect us to see the Sarlacc pit this soon. Okay.
I have to say, I giggled like a giddy schoolgirl. That like I think it's like the third shot or something in the episode is Boba Fett like wriggling through the innards of the Sarlacc, and I was like, this is exactly what I wanted out of this show.
And as Mike says, Farnham, he says he was cringing watching it all, but it was good. It was good. My husband enjoyed it almost as much as Mando 1.
But Kyle said he was just whelmed.
Whelmed. Yeah, Kyle, let us know a little bit more. Why just whelmed? um for me, it hit a lot of what I was expecting. There was a night we got a great introduction into, I felt like I know a little bit more about the relationship between Boba Fett and Fennec Shand, beyond kind of that, just that moment we've had with them before. I'm still I'm interested to see this story of an orphan who became a bounty hunter. So you go from, no parents to pretty much only following orders, and now you're the boss. And I'm very intrigued by the idea, and I can't wait to kind of follow Boba Fett's journey in these new shoes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Kyle said he felt it lacked a big hook at the end, which we did get in The Mandalorian with the
Mhm.
reveal of Baby Yoda, aka Grogu. So he expected something more, and I could see that. I was kind of hoping for that too. But when I watched this episode last night, I really liked it overall, despite it not having that big kind of cliffhanger twist reveal at the end. And then I rewatched it this morning to kind of prepare for this podcast and to kind of go through my Easter egg list, which we'll talk about in a bit. But on the second viewing, I actually liked it more. I liked it even more. Just I think freeing it from the weight of the expectations that I had for the show and kind of accepting that I kind of know the strategy that they're going to be taking in letting the story unfold, I was able to appreciate the slow burn that they're going for. Because I think I have to guess that this season of 7 episodes is going to be much more serialized than Mandalorian season 1 was, where they were traveling from planet to planet. I think this is going to be a through line through the whole season, and I also think that we're going to get basically half flashbacks and half quote unquote current day.
Mhm.
We'll see what happened to Boba Fett between Return of the Jedi and The Mandalorian unfold in the flashbacks, and then we're also going to see what's happening as he becomes the crime lord of Mos Espa on Tatooine. And I think that's now that we understand that structure, I think we can appreciate the show for what it is going forward. Let's talk a little bit more about that story. How would you describe the story of this episode to somebody who hasn't watched it? Though I don't recommend that you do that.
Let me see. How would I this particular story? This story, we are seeing Boba Fett. Um, First of all, we find out the answer to how did he survive a moment in time that we didn't expect him to survive, and then from that we see kind of the initial recovery from that, and we see I feel like we're getting hints into how that has shaped him. And so when we have moments in time in this particular story, where we see him, he is taken over for the Hut crime boss, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm unsure. So I will say I'm unsure how long Bib Fortuna had the role before Boba is there, because the way that we have this story unfolding, it's clear that it's still considered really the Hutt Empire, and he's trying to figure out now moving forward how he, along with his right hand person, Fennec Shand, can kind of keep that conglomerate together under his thumb. And he very clearly has stated he's going to do it differently than Hutt. And so we're going to see how that, and it's clear in the initial moments that the mayor of Mos Espa now thinks, ooh, I'm maybe now that there's a new man in charge, maybe I don't have to be paying all that money that I was paying the previous crime boss. So we can see that that's developing as a little plot within it. So that's kind of what this story is. There's a new crime boss in town, and will he be able to hold on to his empire? And will he be able to do it while maintaining this kind of not torturous, not strong-armed, fear-led persona that the Hutt Empire had?
Yeah, I totally agree. I was thinking about the flashbacks though, and some of the stuff that we see in the modern day. I think the biggest thing I walked away from this episode with is that if I ever visit Tatooine, I know I can't put anything down on the ground or set anything like on a shelf or something. Or if I turn around, Jawa is gonna run up and steal it.
Right?
Like I feel like those Jawas, they just appear out of nowhere and take your stuff, like your armor or your credits or whatever.
I cracked up when there was that brawl happening with with Fennec
Yeah.
Shan, you were jumped leaving the cantina, and as this massive fight scene is going on, if you pay attention, you can see in the background there's a little Jawa over there trying to get at Boba's helmet.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
You
awesome.
can't leave anything unattended on Tatooine, or the Jawas will get it immediately. Um, yeah, let's talk about the cast of Star Wars: The Book of Boba Fett. Obviously, we've got Tamura Morrison back as Boba Fett. We talked about him earlier, whether or not we can call him Tim. I thought he did such a great job in this episode. I'm really impressed by his acting. What did you think?
Me too. I mean, it seemed like there's a lot of physical stuff going on, and I'm sure that some of it is unknown to me, stunt double, but it looks like he had to go through a lot himself too. And I was thinking that was pretty impressive. And this has to be such a different kind of experience. I'm eager to learn how much of it is practical versus that enormous set where you're dealing with like almost nothing being real. So yeah, these will be the questions I'm eager to find out. By the way, Kyle's asked you, and so I'm going to pop it up here for you. Popcorn or churro? Are you familiar with this construct?
I've heard it, but I don't know what it means.
Oh, okay. Well, within the world of Laughing Place, because it's the Disney fans, we sum up the A or B option as popcorn or churro, and then we
Right.
give you your A or B option. So
Okay.
Jawas or Tusken Raiders? What say you? What's your pick? Tusken Raiders, Jawas? Pick one.
Weirdly, I have to say Jawas, because as annoying as they are, like I just described, they're going to come out of nowhere and take your stuff. I don't think I would fit in among like warriors, you know? I think I'm between the warriors and the scavengers, I'm much more of a scavenger.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't know. How do you feel?
There you go. No, I'm told. I think I find the Jawas endlessly fascinating, and I would totally pick the Jawas, even though this episode gave us a peek, I think, into a little bit different realm of the Tusken Raiders. It made me question if there's more diversity among the tribes.
Oh yeah.
Of Tusken Raiders, because typically we've seen domed dwellings. That's what I associate with Tusken dome dwellings. Whereas these were more pyramid, more triangular, kind of straight edged structures. And just the visual of it, there was a lot of elements that I associate with Tusken Raiders, the tanning and this, and maybe that's a seasonal thing, but it made me wonder if perhaps we're getting a glimpse into the notion that there's a more diversity among the tribes within the Tusken Raider.
Right, and the analog, of course, to the real world is the Native Americans, and of course, we've got so many different tribes there, so that makes perfect sense, I think. And these Tusken Raiders had different outfits. I think, like you pointed out, they're got kind of darker outfits than what we're used to. And I also loved the detail, which I didn't notice until my second viewing, that the younglings of the Tusken Raiders don't have full-fledged gaffy sticks. They have just like sticks, like uncarved sticks that they use like as training gaffy sticks, which I thought was such a cool, like you kind of graduate to getting your gaffy stick later in life, I guess, when they come of age or something.
Now,
I thought that was such a neat look into their culture.
I've never paid attention to the gaffy stick. Are they all the same, or do individual gaffy sticks appear differently? Because now you've got me wondering if there's like different ornamentation depending on certain kind of rite of passage or elements of that lifestyle.
So. That's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to, but I'm sure that's knowable, because people pay a lot of attention to that kind of stuff for sure. How about Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand? I don't think she had a ton to do in this episode, but this was really more about telling us how Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc and stuff, and the stuff that was in the present day. She's definitely there, but she is kind of the sidekick now, where Boba Fett has stepped into the lead role. What do you think about her performance, and where do you think we'll see her character going from here?
My main takeaway from this episode with Fennec was that when Boba Fett comes out of the Bacta tank, he tells her that he was having those nightmares have returned.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's indicative of something beyond purely a business rapport. my boss isn't going to tell me I had a nightmare last night, let's say,
Right.
that type of thing. And so that was one of my takeaways, was that I'm interested to learn kind of how they came together, because I feel like there's a stronger bond than simply you're good at your job, I'm good at my job. If we get together, we'll make a lot of money kind of scenario.
Yeah, she's kind of his confidant, or
Mhm.
what would you call it in the mafia? The like Silvio in The Sopranos, and there's a word for it that I cannot remember. Right. Consigliere. It came to me. Look at that.
Very
My
good.
Italian American background came in handy there. How about guest stars for this episode? I was so thrilled when I saw the credits and saw that Matt Berry from What We Do in the Shadows, one of the funniest guys on that show, was the voice of the 8D8 droid who's working in Jabba's court, kind of introducing people because they don't have a protocol droid. He's like, we really need to get a protocol droid. Um, but just a hilarious British comedian who's been in a ton of stuff, and his voice is so unique. So it's great to see him there. Major Domo Mike said, yeah, that's another word for what I was saying too, for sure. And then we had one of the co-stars of Veep, David Pesquezi, was the Twi'lek major domo of the mayor that came in and talked to Jabba the Hutt. Now, you had a theory about the mayor that I saw on our Slack. Let's talk about that.
I was totally joking,
No,
but the major domo uses his name, but I
he
love.
says the name of the mayor.
I thought that the words he says before his thing are the name of the mayor, but maybe
Oh,
they're like words. Okay, see, now I'm looking at my notes. Hang on, I wrote it down because I was like, it's not something familiar to me. Let me
you
see,
could be
where is
right.
it?
If they said his name, then the theory goes out the window.
He said Mock Shaz
Oh,
before, and then the mayor, because when 8D8 is introducing, he says
oh,
blank blank mayor of blah blah blah. But my hope was that because we had not seen the mayor on screen, I was like, I would love it to be Watto, because my most Espa knowledge is very limited. Watto is part of my knowledge of the general region, and so there you
yeah.
go.
Star Wars is a small world after all. So I would not be shocked if Watto shows up in some capacity in the show, because we have been to Mos Espa before in Star Wars in the prequels. We know some people who live there. So yeah, why not? Let's have Watto show up. He's probably pretty old. I remember when he showed up in episode 2, Attack of the Clones, he had like stubble, and he had gotten so much older because Anakin had aged up like a decade or whatever. So yeah, Watto on his deathbed is the mayor of Mos Espa.
But
Who
I
knows?
love this. I loved this character, the Major Domo. What was your take on
Oh,
him?
I couldn't stop talking about the way he used his hands when he was talking. This is what I kept saying to my wife. Like, it's so interesting. I couldn't take my eyes off this guy. That was such an interesting choice.
Yeah, I wanted more. It was
I
like, wait, he's already leaving? Come back.
right.
I want more, because
I
it's so
hope we
much
get more of
deeper.
that character. And he said they're probably going to be sending another whatever from the
Mhm.
mayor to come and talk to Boba Fett. And he asked him for the tribute instead of giving him tribute. Weird bowing, said Mike Farnham. Yeah, he's got such an interesting physical presence and made some interesting choices with that performance. So definitely want to see him again. Then we also had Jennifer Beals, who we know from Flashdance, playing the character named Garza Fwip, and she's the Twi'lek who's in charge of the casino, which is called the Sanctuary, right?
Mhm.
So what did you think of her? We definitely didn't get a lot of time with her, and I'm guessing we're going to see more.
No, we didn't. We didn't get much time with her. She's very elegant. This was my first time with like seemingly human styled Twi'lek all the way. Like, I'm
Oh
used
yeah.
to them being, like either blue or have the is there a word for the
Yes.
tail? See, I'm gonna ask you. You're gonna be like,
Leku.
Leku.
Lekku. It
But
was in there somewhere, just like
yeah, I
consigliere.
don't know. Is that her visual is very silky, very like I like it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Ardala from Buck Rogers in my youth. Yeah, uh, my husband actually. This is my husband Doobie bringing up this comment here, and it says, "When I grow up, I want to clean helmets and water down blue warthogs." Remarking on the moment when the assistants ask if they can take care of his Gamorrean guards.
Boy,
And
I never thought I would feel pity for the Gamorrean guards, but they're like really treated as like subhuman by everyone except Boba Fett, who is like, you treated, you served Jabba and Bib Fortuna. Will you serve me? And he like, they're basically like treated as
mhm,
respected employees now. And actually, when he needs to get healed later in the episode, they bring him back to that Bacta tank and put him in there, and they're almost kind of like his nursemaids.
yes.
Like when Fennec Shand is off fighting those assassins, like it's pretty interesting to see the role that those Gamorreans stepped into.
And it was interesting that it wasn't like, do your guys want to go refresh? It was, we'll take them out back and hose them down like they're, some sort of animal. So yeah, I agree with you that the contrast between the majority of society with the way that Boba Fett interacted with them is telling, and I think is an important kind of character moment that we will continue to see play out.
He even when he's held captive by the Tusken Raiders and he sees that there's the Rodian next to him tied up, he offers to cut him free after he uses the massive, those lizard dog things to cut his own restraints. He asks the Rodian if he can cut his restraints as well. And then the Rodian just like yells and attracts the attention of the Tuskens, which is Mike is asking if we know the point of the gang with the shields attacking them. I guess we can go into that now.
Okay.
So I've seen a lot of theories about that just from the trailers. People have been guessing who those people are. And the most prominent theory that I've seen is that they are in some way related to Crimson Dawn, the crime syndicate that was run by Darth Maul way back at the end of the prequel era, at the end of the Clone Wars. And then it was taken over by Kira, who is Han Solo's ex-girlfriend, as seen in Solo: A Star Wars Story. If you've been reading the recent comics, the War of the Bounty Hunters and stuff that's come after that, that's all about the re-emergence of Crimson Dawn into the Star Wars underworld. And people are thinking like, okay, the reason they brought Kira back into the comics and Crimson Dawn back is because it might tie into this kind of crime war going on in the Book of Boba Fett. So could be Doobie asked if the Tuskens are incapable of being kind, because the Tusken child was helped twice and never repaid. Yeah, that's right.
But I feel like that's where the adults came in and noticed what had been done on behalf of the youngling, and so gave the water gourd to Boba.
Right. And that was something I didn't notice until my second viewing this morning, is that the kid kind of like takes credit for killing that monster at the end. I didn't get that my first viewing. I thought, oh, he told them what Boba Fett did, but no, he was taking credit for it. But the chieftain of that Tusken Raider tribe comes over and he realizes, oh, that kid couldn't have taken down that crazy Ray Harryhausen monster thing. So he gives him the water cactus or whatever those things are. How about rounding out the guest stars this week? We had director Robert Rodriguez as the Trandoshan crime lord guy who comes to pay tribute to Jabba. He actually gives him a Wookiee pelt, which I thought was disturbing, knowing and loving the Wookiees.
No, agreed. I said, I was like, that is a Wookiee? Oh, no. That is...
Yep. Yeah. The Trandoshans are known for hunting Wookiees. That's their whole thing.
Okay.
That was his gift to Boba Fett. And the voice was Robert Rodriguez, the director of the episode. So that was cool.
And then he's the one who offers the what, good wishes by saying, "May you never leave Mos Espa."
I love that line that Boba Fett has where he says, like, even a compliment sounds like a threat when it's coming from Trandoshan.
Oh, but it's true. May you never leave. Most Espa. Well, I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to take that.
Right.
Like, are you going to make sure I never leave because you buried me here? What are we saying?
Let's talk about Mos Espa for a minute, because we had a few discussions when the trailers were coming out about what that big settlement was that looked like it was in that big crater, right? And we kept
Right.
saying, I think you and I said, it can't be on Tatooine because it seems too big to be a settlement on Tatooine. And it turns out that that was Mos Espa, which we have seen before. It's where Anakin and his mom Shmi lived in the prequels, and Watto and stuff. It's where the pod races take place. And it just seems like they've decided to reveal that it's much bigger than we had seen, because there's this big sweeping shot when they first introduce the city, and you do see the part that's on the top level of the desert.
Right.
That's I'm assuming that's where Anakin's home was, or Watto's junk shop or whatever. But then there's this whole other section of the city that's down in this giant crater with this huge tower
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of it, and that's where a big part of the action of this episode takes place. And we also kind of find out that Jabba's palace is considered part of the Mos Espa area, which I don't know that we knew that before. When they said that, I was like, what, really? I mean, because Mos Espa wasn't invented until the prequel. So obviously Jabba's palace was in Return of the Jedi way before episode 1, but this is kind of some retconning going on
Right.
here. Mike Farnham said it looked a little bit like Jeddah. Yeah, Jeddah City in Rogue One. And yes, he did direct Spy Kids, Robert Rodriguez.
I, I wonder if we'll learn more about just the Hutt Empire in general, just how, kind of spacious was it? How close, are we geographically, that type of thing. Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine it's not that far because they walked, right? I mean, theoretically, or are we to believe that they traveled and then they walked? Like, I'm not sure from the moment he's in the Bacta tank and all that conversation,
Right.
and he's on his 2 feet. Is that like I'm assuming they arrived in the city, and that's where the debate was over whether or not he should have been carried, not So because she was one of the things that I thought was interesting is that Fennec Shand pointed out that for this city, that if you want to be respected, right, you have to be very aggressive and really put forth fear into people, and to the point where you shouldn't even be walking on the ground. You should be carried as you make your way through the city. You're lowering yourself by walking in the city. It's interesting.
Yeah, and then after the fight, Boba Fett tells the Gamorreans to bring him back to the Bacta pod, and it seems like they get there pretty quickly.
Right.
So how far outside of that settlement is the palace? When we saw C-3PO and R2-D2 walking up to Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi, it looks like it's in the middle of nowhere, right? It doesn't have any city around it. So I wonder how far that is. Yeah.
But then I'm reminded of how kind of sparse Mos Eisley seemed when I saw the film versus decades later. So, I'll right. Am I using the right spaceport? It's like I feel like it.
Yeah.
I feel like it was kind of a less inhabited city in my view than it was in later generations.
Well, certainly in 1997, Mos Eisley became much bigger on George Lucas's command. So let's you want to go through this Easter egg list that I put together?
Sure.
You have that ready to go?
I believe I do.
This morning I watched the episode a second time, and I just kind of took some notes, and I wrote down basically everything that I recognized as having been in Star Wars previously, not counting, Jabba's palace or Boba Fett or Fennec Shand. So basically anything else that we didn't already know was going to be part of the show. And I just, kept my eye open as we went through the episode. Let's scroll down real quick. I did 35 things. I called some of them Easter eggs, and my wife told me not all of these are Easter eggs, which she's right. Some of them are very prominent things in the episode, but I just wanted to point out all the connections to other Star Wars media. Obviously, the Bacta tank we've talked about from The Empire Strikes Back. Luke's hanging in one of those after he gets attacked by the Wampa. We saw flashes of Camino and Geonosis, 2 key locations from Boba Fett's youth. What did you make of those little flashes he got of his youth?
Yeah, I felt it was very important for us to know that he had been abandoned. Well, not abandoned. He had been orphaned. Um, and I am interested to know, if his desire for revenge because of his father's death will play any part in some of his motivation in the storyline here.
Great.
Because he watched his dad be murdered by somebody. That messes with your head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Sarlacc, obviously, we've talked about that. The stormtrooper that he finds. I actually wanted to ask you a question about this because my understanding of how stormtrooper armor works keeps changing. But when Boba Fett is in the Sarlacc, he finds the stormtrooper kind of being digested in there, which is fine. We've seen stormtroopers on Tatooine, so I believe that one could end up in the Sarlacc pit. But he like pulls this tube out from underneath the helmet and like sucks some air out of it, I guess, to help him survive or breathe while he's down there. But I never, in my head, I never thought that the stormtroopers were like breathing out of a tube in their armor. Did you? I thought they were just, the air was being filtered through their helmet. I don't know. What was your understanding of that?
I would agree with you. I was very surprised that he found an air source within the stormtrooper. But then in thinking about it, I was like, well, maybe it's like a backup. Maybe it's not
Yeah.
like something that they're constantly using. Maybe it's like, something that maybe they'll need in the midst of combat or whatever. So I was like, okay, but I'm with you. It's not a thought that I had that they're, constantly, oh wait, I got to go back to the base because I'm running out of air.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's
Okay.
why I'm more inclined to see it as kind of some sort of emergency backup.
Yeah, I could see that. They go to a lot of harsh environments. Even
Mhm.
there in the desert, you might find yourself in a place where you don't have enough air. So that makes sense to me. Okay, we saw him use the flamethrower. The sail barge wreckage was there behind him when he crawled out of the Sarlacc pit. The
Knowing that
sand
was on your list of things you were hoping to see, I remember from
Yes,
the list, it was like, oh, they gave it to him right away.
that's right. I got to start going through my list. A couple months ago, I made this list of things that I want to see in the Book of Boba Fett, and of course, the wreckage of the sail barge and the Sarlacc were both on that list. So those can be checked off. Then we got an explanation of how the Jawas got the armor, which connects to the Mandalorian and to the Chuck Wendig Star Wars Aftermath novel series with Cobb Vanth and the Boba Fett armor and everything. Oh, I love this detail. The long johns under his armor, because we've talked about that before. How in the Mandalorian, when he shows up, Boba Fett's wearing this new kind of black undergarment under his armor. Previously, we used to see him with this kind of grayish. I don't know, how would you describe it? Kind of
Yeah,
grayish white.
yeah, I would
Uh,
go with gray, maybe kind of a greenish gray colored
yeah.
garment underneath the
So
armor.
this episode basically spells out what happens to that undergarment, because he's left, first of all, he's being digested in the Sarlacc, then he's left like baking in the sun for days after the Jawas seal his armor, and he's just got that gray long john thing on, and then the rest of the episode he's just like either being tied up or dragged or tortured by the Tusken Raiders. So that thing gets torn to shreds. So it makes perfect sense now that he's got this other black undergarment that he wears now under his armor. So yeah, good job filling in the gaps on that one. The Tuskens we've already covered, I think, and the gaffy sticks. We go down a little bit more there.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. The Mastiffs, these dogs first appeared in Attack of the Clones, and we've also seen them in The Mandalorian. And then the Twin Sons of Tatooine. This part was interesting. The parallel between the title, Stranger in a Strange Land, was the title of this book from the 60s. It's a book by Robert A. Heinlein, a sci-fi author. And it's a book about a man who's raised on Mars and what happens to him after he returns to Earth. So kind of an interesting, they're drawing an interesting parallel there. That title was also used for a Lost episode, which I thought, kind of another Disney connection there.
Oh, and it made me laugh because honestly, that's one of the ones that as a Lost fan, most people, don't regard as among the greatest. I mean, even Damon Lindelof, I believe at some point has said that was kind of one of the moments in time that led to the established, we're going to run the series this long kind of scenario. So that was the one. My husband immediately went to Lost when that title popped on screen. He goes, "Oh, That's an episode of Lost. So yeah.
Yep. And yeah, we mentioned the twin suns, the gaffy stick.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Oh yeah, the little you think those are cacti or what are those things that they're finding? Those little pods under the sand. That's what I call them, like
Yeah,
cactus, but
sure. I mean,
because
it's
they
in
have
the desert, so yeah. I mean,
yeah.
that would work.
So they're
I don't
digging up these
yeah,
little
wonder what they are.
cacti that have water inside of them, and we've seen these before because in the Mandalorian, Cobb Vanth is offered one kind of as a peace offering by the Tuskens, and he refuses it at first. Later in the episode, he does drink from it, so they tied that in with that too. So I thought that was cool. The Rhodian, of course, calling back to Greedo in the first Star Wars movie, the same
Mhm.
species. And the Aqualish species showed up. We've seen them a bunch. Ponda Baba in the Cantina in the original Star Wars, and then in the Galactic Senate in the prequels. The 8D8 droid, he was always just like this one-off joke of a droid torturing another droid in Jabba's palace, putting those irons to his feet. And then we got another one in Galaxy's Edge, the 8JD8, I think, in Ronto Roasters. And then, of course, the Trandoshan species is Bossk, the namesake of this episode. This podcast title. And the Twi'leks we've already talked about. Let's see, Rancor. Oh, yeah, there's a reference to how Jabba would have dropped that Major Domo guy to the menagerie, which, of course, is a reference to the Rancor. Gamorreans we've mentioned. Mos Espo we talked about. Oh, what about these dogs? What did you make of those? These little robot dogs running around.
Those were wild, and it looked like she was hurting them. She was like
Right.
hurting these little robot critters. Yeah, they were pretty wild. I liked them.
Yeah, when I saw those, the first thing I thought of was the YouTube videos you can go watch of these really creepy robot dogs coming out of Boston Dynamics. And I think there's one in Universal Orlando, right? For the what's it called? The Toothsome Chocolate
They
Emporium.
they had one. I feel like that was like a special weekend event. I don't think that's like a regular occurrence
Okay.
over there. But yeah, there was one out there that you could interact with. Pretty cool.
Yeah, we certainly haven't seen those in Star Wars before, but it's interesting that that lady was herding these robot dogs through the streets of Mos Espa. And this is the big one, the one that made me the happiest when I saw him. In fact, I dug up my action figure here of Max Rebo, who has evidently survived the sail barge explosion. He was on the sail barge, the Katana, in Return of the Jedi when that blew up after that battle in the desert there by the pit of Carkoon. But he's still alive. He's playing in the Sanctuary. His band members now are a Bith musician who may or may not be one of the members of the modal nodes. I don't know. And then there's a little astromech droid playing drums. I just loved all of that. I thought that was wonderful. And they were playing like a weird like remix of the Cantina Band song. I just thought that was very funny.
I loved this nod, and I loved this inclusion. And for me, it felt like the survivors of the event. So yeah, very, very nice to see Max Rebo back into that random device that I'll call a keyboard.
There is a name for it. Do I know it right now? I don't.
I'm sure.
I don't think I do. What else we got? Oh gosh, yeah. So the RX series pilot droid, who we know from Star Tours, was created for Disney Parks, has since been worked into the Star Wars canon. They've shown up in Star Wars Rebels and stuff. And we've got one in the Captain Rex droid is now the DJ Rex droid in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. But yeah, Kyle said, because I wrote in my review of this Boba Fett episode about how that was the big moment of Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the screen, recognizing the reference. And Kyle said he did that while he was holding his coffee while he was watching this. So yeah, there's a RX series droid dealing sabacc in the casino at the Sanctuary. I thought that was really neat. Like these droids are capable of other stuff. They can be pilots, DJs, card dealers, anything.
And I like the energy that it gave to the scene, because it just offered a very diversified image, right? You didn't just have humans, seemingly human, all over the place, or even seemingly independently sentient beings. You had beings, and then you had all these little droids of varying kinds, machines, as it were, roaming about. It was very, very cool. Made me want to visit the sanctuary. Made me wish Oga's Cantina was more like the sanctuary.
Yeah, it felt very Star Wars to me for that reason. Absolutely. There were astromech droids serving drinks, which immediately brought to mind R2D2 serving drinks on Jabba's sail barge, which I think was probably the intentional reference there. Other aliens that I spotted in that casino. This species that looks like a wolf man is called the Shistaveran species.
Oh, wow.
And actually, I think they were taken out. This guy was taken out of the original Star Wars for the special edition because George Lucas never liked that mask. It just seems like a Halloween mask.
Oh,
But
okay.
people loved it anyway, and they became part of the canon as this named species. I think the bartender was a Chadra fan, this like bat face type creature. And then there were more Twi'leks there and stuff.
Yeah, lots of Twi'leks.
Yeah. What else we got? Let's see. We talked about the assassins and who they could possibly be. Boba Fett got to fire his wrist rocket during that battle, which was pretty cool to see that.
And that, I felt, gave us a look into the assassin, right? Because you had seen him be so magnanimous with the Gamorrean guard, right? But then this guy's climbing and he just obliterated him.
Yep.
It reminded you of Vader's advice regarding, bringing back Solo.
He's not Batman. He's more than willing to kill his enemies. So what about this? Did you think of Aladdin during this?
Yes, I thought of Aladdin, but I have to admit, I also thought of the Universal Bourne experience, because there's sequences in that where you're on the rooftops and various well-placed poles allow you to swing to the next and that type of thing. But yeah, this was fun. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the fact that we saw them, like the way that they would change the camera angles. But I will say that this is one of those moments where it felt stark, which I'm not. Like the depth of the imagery around it wasn't very rich, and I don't know if it should be, but it was just, I just noticed it. It felt studio to me, if that makes sense.
Okay. I didn't notice that, but when I go through it again, I'll look out for that. But yeah, that kind of parkour chase scene around the city on the rooftops, very fun, very exciting, and I immediately thought of Aladdin, of course. I just wanted to break out into one jump ahead.
Yeah. I hope we'll see some of those, like little mashups on the various social media. People having some one jump fun with the opening sequence with that sequence there.
Yeah, the Mystery Science Theater riff for that moment would definitely be singing that song. Then when Boba Fett is being kind of taken through the desert by the young Tusken Raider, and he's got the Greedo, the Rodian there with him, the fellow prisoner, they come across this moisture farm, and at first glance I thought, oh, is this the Lara's homestead where Luke Skywalker grew up? But the building shape was a little different. This picture here is the original, and the one in the show is a little blockier.
So I was gonna say it was more like a block with that dome on top.
Exactly. So it's not intended to be the Lara's homestead, but it is a similar looking moisture farm. And then you see that the farmers there are being kind of bullied, and their water or moisture is being stolen by this gang that leave this kind of spray painted symbol on the dome of the building there. So I guess we're going to be finding out more about those guys.
And the symbol felt familiar, but then when I went on various like Star Wars insignia, I went looking around, I couldn't find anything. So I'm guessing it's just they did a good job of making it familiar to, because we've seen tagging in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And everything. So I suspect, but it did reflect the Arabesh letter L.
Yeah, it looked like a Arabesh L and then a backwards L to me. So maybe LL. Who knows if that spells lightning lane or I don't know. I guess we'll find out in the coming weeks what that is. We also had a reference to Anchorhead when Boba Fett says they could have escaped with the Rodian to Anchorhead and got off planet. And that's a planet that we've heard. That's a little outpost on Tatooine that we've heard about before. I think Luke Skywalker mentions it in the first movie.
Tells Ben he can get him as far as
Anchorhead. Yeah, exactly. I love this. I always like fictional insults or insults in a fake language.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear a couple of them when the Rodian is yelling at Boba Fett. He calls him a Slimo, and he uses the word poodoo, which are both things we've heard before in Star Wars, in Episode 1, Phantom Menace, and then in Return of the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt says poodoo. There's been a long debate about what that actually means. Either it's what you feed a bantha or what comes out of the other end of a bantha. But then Slimo is basically like a sleazeball or a slime ball type thing.
Okay.
And you can hear Anakin calls Sebulba that in the Phantom Menace. So
Okay.
some more references to the languages of Star Wars. And then the last big thing, the big kind of surprise at the end, is this huge creature that's not an existing creature that we knew about before in Star Wars that lived under the sand on Tatooine. And the first thing I thought of was Ray Harryhausen kind of stop motion animation. Did you feel that way?
100%. Yeah, when that four-armed, two-legged thing came out of the sand. Now, did you immediately think that it was not going? I mean, I'll be honest. They're in the sand. They brush away sand. They see scales. I'm thinking a baby crate dragon. But
I
then
thought Crate Dragon too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But then when the arms came out, I'm like, oh nope, wait, this is something else. What is this?
Yeah, Tatooine just seems like a tough place to live because you got all these dangerous creatures running around. Yeah, Kyle says he thought Clash of the Titans, which is exactly what I was
Exactly. Yeah.
referencing. The Ray Harryhausen right there. That's a picture of
Right.
the Kraken from Clash of the Titans. That's the puppet. And it looks almost exactly like that, except it has legs on the bottom and forearms, which that one does too, I think. So I gotta think that that's a reference to Ray Harryhausen. Even the way it moved looked a little bit like stop motion. I don't know if it was stop motion or if they created that all in CGI or if it was physically there on set. It was seamless enough. I would say that the effects were pretty convincing on that. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, totally agree. And then the sequence itself, I love the way that they wove in kind of something familiar to us with the chain around the neck and pulled from behind. So you had that as well. You're like, oh, that's familiar. That's happened on Tatooine before.
Yeah, I pointed that out there in the description that Leia killed Jabba the Hutt in the same way that Boba Fett kills this guy. So that was my list of Easter eggs. You can go and read the whole thing on laughingplace.com. What about the future of the Book of Boba Fett? What are you expecting from or hoping from in future episodes?
I'd like to see. I'm interested to see how this conflict of crime boss versus this kind of gentle side that he has. It's not really gentle, but just, every once in a while he doesn't seem to just have that kill instinct that you think you have to have if you're a crime boss. So I'm interested to see kind of how they keep confronting him with that, because I feel like that's going to be kind of a repetitive part of it where we'll see the kind of the coin flip back and forth between that.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick by my prediction that we're going to get half flashbacks and half kind of current day stuff in pretty much every episode going forward. I think they're going to follow through on that structure. I know I saw some people complaining about too many flashbacks or that we spent too much time with the Tusken Raiders and stuff, but I especially on my second viewing, I really liked all that stuff, and I really liked the slow build of it and getting to spend more time in that world. Always enjoy that, and just kind of expanding and building on the stuff that we know about these cultures and the characters and the species and stuff. So I really don't have any major complaints. You had a big question about the flashback specifically, asking me earlier today. You asked what I would like to see told via the flashbacks, other parts of Boba Fett's past. And I think the obvious way to go, and I'm guessing they're going to get to this, is why, once he's in with the Tusken Raiders and once he figures out where his armor is, why doesn't he just go get it from Cobb Vanth?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we have to get that at a certain point. We have to understand why. Was he like on his way over there when Din Djarin happened to be there and got the armor? It seems odd that it would take him that many years to figure that out and then go and get it. It doesn't seem like Cobb Vanth himself would be that much of a threat to Boba Fett. He seems like a pretty good fighter, Is it is the armor just the only thing keeping him from getting the armor? The fact that Cobb Vanth has all those weapons at his disposal. I don't know. That's the big number one on my list of what I'd like to see further explained in the flashbacks. What about you?
There's certain characters from the Clone Wars that they could utilize from Boba Fett's youth. And it would be fun if they use these kind of nightmare dream elements to show us a little bit of that, because some of those characters I think would be fun to see within this live action world. Cad Bane, or a Sting, some of the kind of the bounty hunter element that a very young Boba Fett interacted with in the Clone Wars. So yeah, but the other thing that I'm kind of hoping we get, first of all, I want some pod racing, I hope, right? But I would love to see them throw in a bit of humor with them trying to find a protocol droid. And just a little bit of, because you get some that are, like a C3, maybe if you got like a hyper C3PO, like even beyond what C3PO is,
Yeah.
that, just kind of a range. I think it'd be kind of fun if the hunt for the protocol droid gave it a little bit of humor. But I don't know. That was just something that hit me when she said, when they were, discussing we need a protocol droid.
Yeah, that would be fun to see. And regarding the young or the flashbacks to his youth, I wonder if they could bring back Daniel Logan, who I think he must be like 30-ish now, as far as the actor's age, and maybe you could have him playing a younger Boba Fett for flashbacks to the period between the prequels and the original trilogy. If they wanted, now that they've established these flashbacks, maybe they could jump around in time, like you said, and have Cad Bane or a Singh showed up. That would be pretty good.
But I'm
Yeah.
curious if there's are there any specific moments in time with Boba Fett that you're hoping to get kind of his POV, since we are having these flashbacks? So theoretically, right, one of these moments could be anything we've already seen that we
Oh
know
yeah.
about him, but yet we would see it from his perspective. Moments in Star Wars lore, but from Boba's eyes.
Yeah, maybe delivering the carbonite block to Jabba's palace, because even in War of the Bounty Hunters, we see that it's there at the end, but I don't think we get that moment. Maybe we do, but I would like to see that moment in live action anyway,
Yeah.
of him bringing the carbonite block there. And then the comedy example would be the dinner that they all eat together on Cloud City with Luke, not with Luke, but Han and Leia and Chewbacca and Lando and Darth
Yeah,
Vader all
there you
eating lunch together, whatever. I think
go.
they did it on Robot Chicken, but
But that would be fun. That
yeah.
would be fun, yeah, because I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh, there'd be some fun moments that we would get, like a different perspective on what it was like to be on the sail barge when Luke and everybody started doing their magic stuff there. See it from Boba's perspective rather
Yeah.
than, the usual vision we get where we're focused on our hero. So
Yeah. We'll see. But otherwise, I would say a very solid start for the Book of Boba Fett. I am pretty excited for the next 6 weeks, and we will be back to talk about that show some more. Anything else that you wanted to say about this first episode? Great.
mhm.
So I did have some news about Who's the Bossk. I am officially canceling the segment called Lucasfilm Project Pitch. I think that has run its course. I think we've covered pretty much everything that can come out of that. So the final segment is going to remain intact. It's called First Steps into a Larger World. And that is where me and my guests talk about the media that we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. My example this week is The Matrix Revolutions. It's the fourth entry in the Matrix film saga. Previously, it was a trilogy. Now there's a fourth movie that came out about a week ago. And I saw it and I thought it was okay, which is pretty much the way I feel about all the sequels of The Matrix. I think the first movie is pretty much perfect. And I think that might be the problem here, is that when you have a movie that's basically perfect, it's impossible to follow it up. And I don't know if they could ever make a sequel to The Matrix that is satisfying in the way that that first movie is satisfying. But it's fine. I would say if you want to watch it on HBO Max, it's there. Or if you want to go to the theater, you can go and watch that. But yeah, it's okay to me. I know people are loving it or hating it. I'm right in the middle of all that. How about you, Rebecca? What have you been watching or enjoying or reading lately?
As my husband shares, this is what I was going to talk about. We have finally watched Ted Lasso. We've made it through the first season, and we are now partway through the second season. What a delightful show! I mean, I know there was so much buzz about it at the time and everything, and I know I just never ended up hitting play on it at the time. But it's just, I understand, given the pandemic and everything, that was especially comforting, but it's such a pleasant show. The humor is amazing. We are constantly laughing throughout it. So I don't know, what you've seen it, right, Mike? You said.
Yes, I really loved the first season of Ted Lasso, and then I thought the second season was pretty good.
Yeah.
Didn't quite live up to the first one for me, but I
No,
don't know.
I
Yeah,
agree. It isn't quite as strong as the first
yeah.
season, but it's still so much more enjoyable than most stuff
Oh
I've
yeah,
checked
and
out.
there's a lot of really good stuff in it. I think it ends really strong from
That's what
my
I've heard.
recollection. Yeah, so
I've heard that from several people.
and I think they've said it's only going to be 3 seasons total. That they've
Okay.
got that story planned out for 3 seasons or whatever. So uh, hopefully they'll finish strong, and I think it'll be remembered as a really good show.
Yeah, no, it's just
Definitely
a
got a
very
great cast.
Yeah, and a very different kind of character. And even though it's that very formulaic fish out of water
Yeah.
scenario, it's just so I don't know, it's delightful, and I'm enjoying it very much. Even though, as I shared with you via our Slack team thing, there was a scene the other day where I because of the thickness of the accent coupled with some of the colloquialisms, it was Ted Lasso in a cab, him and a cabbie talking, and neither my husband nor I really understood what was said in that particular scene. Oh no, not Lasso. It was a different character in the cab,
Yeah.
and yeah, I looked at him to find out what had been said, and he had as quizzical a look on my face as I did, and so we just erupted into laughter at our incompetence.
Are you
At
watching it with the captioning or
we have at
okay?
times, but we didn't have it on at this time, and it was just such a brief little cab interaction that it didn't feel pertinent to rewind and set up captioning, but we just had to giggle at our own incompetence.
I love it. All right. Ted Lasso is available to watch on Apple TV Plus. Like I said, The Matrix. What? No, Revolutions. Why did I say Revolutions? I said that title
Oh,
wrong earlier. Matrix Resurrections is the new one.
I
That's the
think
fourth Matrix movie. Did I say Resurrections? I
I
hope so.
I think so, but I'm not
You
sure.
can watch that on HBO Max
That's
or
what I
in
heard.
theater.
Let me put it that way. That's what I heard. So
Okay.
maybe I just changed it in my head.
Anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of Who's the Bossk live on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. Next week on Who's the Bossk, we'll be talking about episode 2 of the Book of Boba Fett. And as always, please visit laughingplace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. I want to thank my guest this week, Rebekah Moseley, for taking 90 minutes out of her week to come and chat with me about Star Wars. Thank you, Rebekah.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a good time. Always love talking Star Wars with you, Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you so much out there. If you're listening, my name is Mike Celestino. See you real soon. Bye.